Good evening, everyone. You're welcome to the first class of Linux Server Administration. My name is Obafemi, and I'll be taking us through this module. I'm looking forward to an interactive and full practical hands-on session with us. So before we commence, I would like to throw in some ground rules to enable us have smooth session every time we meet. Okay, so I'd like to begin. Am I audible enough? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, thank you. I need one more confirmation, please. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
All right, thank you. So this is how I think we should do it. At some point, I'll turn off my video so that the recording does not get unnecessarily heavy in case we need to upload it. And then when you're watching it as well, that's the first one. The second one is about background noise. I will admonish all us to please mute ourselves when we are listening or when we are watching the trainer do the practicals. However, at any point in time you need clarification, please feel free, absolutely free to unmute yourself and ask your questions. All right, so the essence why I ask us to mute ourselves is so that when we play back the class videos, there will not be so much background noise, so that we can enjoy when we are watching the class videos. But the clause is, don't hesitate to unmute yourself when you need to get clarification or when you need to ask any question.
Sorry, I'm so sorry for cutting you short, Mr. Obafemi. I think there are a few people that are trying to join the class and I don't think they have the link for this one precisely. I don't know if you can reach out to them.
Right. So thank you for that notification. So just like Mr. Olushola did now, I know this is a Zoom meeting, okay? You don't need to go and raise up your hand. This is a live class. Okay, so don't use the raise up your hand icon. Just cut in and ask your question. And I'll be more than willing to pause and answer and give any clarification that you need. Okay, so that's just the two basic ground rules, nothing a big deal. Right now, I'm going to stop the video so we can commence the class. Okay, I'm going to need my white screen right now. Okay, I think people are having challenge trying to log in. Sorry, please just give me some moment. Let me solve this login issue. Okay. So yeah, this is a Linux server administration. I think it will make sense if we begin from the basics, right? since all of us have the background of IT, I wouldn't do much on these explanations, but I know we need to refresh our minds on one or two things. The essence of this whole thing we are doing is for networking sake, for network, all right? And what is a network? When two or more devices, in other parlance, we call it computer, when they are combined together for them to share or exchange resources, okay? Data sharing, they share files, they share printer, they exchange packet among one another. That's networking. Okay, so when you talk about networking, it also means you're going to talk about network infrastructures, all right? The network infrastructures can be classified into three categories. You have the hardware component, you have the software component, and you also have the network services. Okay, so all resources of the network that make network or internet connectivity, all resources of the network that makes the network management, all resources of the network that makes business operations and communication possible. They are all that we are referred to as network infrastructure. So to those joining the class newly, you're welcome. You have not missed anything at all. So we're just starting the class. I'll urge you to kindly settle down and let's follow accordingly. Network infrastructure refers to all the resources of the network that makes the network connect well, that makes the network management possible, that enables business operations, and that allows communication within, among, or inter the network. So having said that, I also said there are three major components of the network. Please pardon me, Engineer Akin is trying to reach out to me. So I'll mute myself so I can speak with him. All right. Engineer Akin was concerned about the people that could not sign in. So he wanted to know if the class has commenced, and I've cleared the doubt. So as I was saying, good people, network infrastructure, you can combine it, you can classify it into three categories. You have the hardware component, you have the software component, and you also have the network service. Okay, so can you give me examples of hardware components of network infrastructure? Those resources that makes network manageable, business operations smooth, communication. What are the hardware components that you can think of?
The switches, router.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kelvin. Yeah.
Printers.
Printers, excellent. Switches that I expect someone to say something that at least it comes to mind first. This is what allows everybody.
Server.
Oh yeah, server. Thank you, sir. Okay, so your server is on a hardware device, what is it called?
A computer.
Exactly. Thank you, sir. All right. So this is actually the base. Before you begin to even remember switches, routers, VLAN, all these ones, at least you know you need a computer and a server, right? So these are hardware components of the network infrastructure. And we talk about the software components. What comes to mind now?
Windows.
Thank
Operating
you.
system.
Exactly. That's quite a broad word for it. Operating system. So in your operating system, you now have all kinds of it. Okay, you have your Windows. Okay, what else do you have in operating system? Can you give me instances? There are many of them.
You have the client, server.
Okay, so let's come to server later. Let's deal with operating system now. Someone has mentioned Windows. Which other one?
You have the Mac operating system.
Thank you, sir.
And of course, right now.
Thank you. You have the Linux, you have the Mac, you have how about mobile operating systems? Which ones can you remember?
Android.
Thank you, sir. You have the Android, you have the iOS. Excellent. So Miss IBK said server, all right. And we also said server in hardware. Okay, so does server qualify to be in at the software component of network infrastructure?
Yes, it does.
Can you explain, please?
So basically what she's trying to talk about the server is the virtual one, the one that's in the cloud, it's not a physical server that we set up that has all the ones that we have in a room that we do the physical setup. It's the one that is set up digitally, virtually.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Miss IBK, do you have this understanding when you said server? Does it jive with what you have in your mind?
Yes, I was thinking about the Windows Server operating system that we install on the virtual machine.
Okay, so there's a difference now. There's a difference now. So I'm enjoying this discussion. There's a difference now. He said the one in cloud, right? And you are saying the OS we install, all right, on our host, on our physical machine. So both are right. Okay. One thing we need to understand is for servers, right? They have also their physical and their software components, their hardware components. Okay, so if I ask an old CS student, CS now I mean computer science, to tell me what's a server, the first thing you will hear is a piece of computer, all right, that provides function for other programs or devices, which are called clients. Excellent. However, as much as it is a piece of computer hardware, it is also a what? A software. So because a computer is built to serve as a server, it doesn't work on its own. There is also the software component of it that must run, that must enable that hardware to what? To function properly, isn't it? So that's why you can have server in both hardware component of network infrastructure, and you can also have it in what? Software component. Okay, like most of us have learned in Windows Server Administration, you have the server OS, isn't it? And you also have the client OS. What most of us carry about on our computer is the client OS. There is the server OS, which you might not be exposed to if you don't have any business to work in a server room, or if you're not an IT person. Okay, but for the sake of this class, some of us have been able to work with Windows Server operating system. So that's it. We've talked about servers, we've talked about OS, right? What other networking software, network infrastructure that is a software can we mention? How about our firewall? Isn't it part of it?
It's a hardware, but though they are software firewalls. So yeah.
Okay, the one you run on your system, is it on hardware? Is it a
No,
hardware?
sorry, is software. Yeah, that's a localized software. Yeah.
Yeah, so your firewall too can also pass, but I will classify firewall as a software because most times it's a program that you write to block what? To control, to monitor access from untrusted network, isn't it? Right. So the firewall is also part of it. But the main focus here is the operating system, which brings us to what we are learning in the next 1 month, Linux. All right. Although there is the third component of network infrastructure, which is network services. You have your IP address, you have your wireless protocol, you have your DSL, you have your T1 line, but we're not going into that. What we are concerned about is Linux. All right. Now you can have your Linux as a server. You can also run it on normal OS, but the one we are dealing with here is Linux server administration, because we believe that by the end of this module, you will be confidently able to say you can manage a Linux server, right? And whoever is able to manage a Linux server, I'm trying to share my web screen now. Whoever is able to manage a Linux server is obviously able to manage the Linux client system, right? Because this is the hierarchy. This is the server here. This is the client here. And here you can see you have other users, right? So at this level, the level of the server is where we are taking us to. And by the end of 4 weeks, we should be able to confidently say, okay, take me to Linux server room. We'll administer and we'll manage it properly. Okay. So now let's start looking at Linux properly. Okay. So what will you say Linux is? I know it's an OS, right? Let's interact. What is Linux? Is anybody taking time to find out? Because for you to do,
it's a gateway.
Linux is a gateway. That's just like 0.5 of 10 of all the things that you can say Linux is. Okay. What the gateway does is just as the name implies, it mans the gate and controls.
Okay, let me say, like it's an interface to gateway. I mean, like gateway, an interface to different program or applications.
No, really. Not really.
It's a server used in managing an enterprise network.
Thank you. It is. So you are getting closer. But I thought we discussed Linux when we were talking about OS, network infrastructure, the software component. So first and foremost, Linux is an operating system. Just as you have your Windows 10, your Windows 8, your Windows 7, right? Just as you have Oracle, just as you have your other operating systems, just as you have your Android, just as you have your iOS or mobile devices, Linux is an operating system. Just that it is an open source OS. By open source, I mean it is not patented. Okay, you can pick it and tweak it to suit your use. All right, not only Microsoft have or has the license to do whatever they want to do on Windows operating system. All right. Apple cannot say they want to work on Windows. Okay. Nokia cannot say they want to work on Windows. Yahoo cannot say they want to work and modify Windows. No. All right. But Linux, an operating system, is an open source. Anybody can lay their hand on it and begin to tweak it. All right. So originally it was conceived and created as a hobby by the man called Linus in 1991. So this is just for knowledge sake. All right. But the best part about it is that it is an open source. Anybody can pick it and begin to work around it. Okay. However, there is something that is essential, that is vital to Linux, that makes it unique. It is because of its kernel. Okay. Can we all see my whiteboard? Am I communicating?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Linux kernel. Okay, this is what actually makes it unique. It is the central component of Linux OS that helps you to manage operations of the computer and the hardware. All right, so if you've heard of kernel before, it's like the core of anything. So you have your applications here, and then you have, at this point, basically, let's say this is your central processing unit. You can say this is your memory or volume or storage. Okay, so because we all have some level of knowledge in IT, most of these things I may not be able to, I may not break it down, but if you didn't get it, please feel free to call me back. So this is not all that elementary class. It might be elementary in Linux, but in IT, it is not elementary. We are not elementary, right? So when I say memory, when I say volume, when I say storage, you know that I'm referring to the same thing. Okay, and when I say computer, when I say your host, you know I'm referring to the same thing, which is your PC in front of you, the PC before me here as well. So we're talking about Linux kernel. It is the core component of an operating system. Okay, it acts as bridge between applications and data processing. And so this is something that makes Linux special on its own. All right, it is the main component of Linux operating system. All right, it communicates between the computer hardware, which is what you see here, the CPU, the computer hardware, the memory, and these are the hardware of the computer, CPU, memory, other devices, okay, and the applications, right, an application. So I think that's the basic on Linux literature for me, and I know you can always read the rest up. Who is not comfortable with this basic explanation before we begin our hands-on, our labs? Who is not comfortable? What do you need me to explain again? So Linux is not a gateway. It's not an interface between anything. Linux is an operating system, a full-fledged operating system. And the good thing about it is an open source. So if anyone here have good knowledge of programming, especially low-level programming, you can pick a distro of Linux and tweak it for your use. Okay, so I think saying distro now, I might have to do one or two explanation on that. Okay, so the time permits us, so let's just talk about it. But before I go further, are there questions? Are we in class?
Yes. Yeah.
So are there questions or clarifications? All right, so I'll just move on. Like, you have so when I said Linux is an open source, that means it is not patented. Any one organization or institution can pick it and tweak the kernel to suit their purpose. All right. So having said that, that should imply that many or one or two organizations have picked it and they have developed or metamorphosized it into one or two different versions. Okay, so these versions of Linux in the IT parlance is distribution, Linux distributions. Other people, you see, they call it distros. All right, and you have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 8 that is popular. Okay, and the first one you must have heard about it before is the Debian. Has anybody heard of Debian before? Debian Linux OS is actually all right. So it's a distro of Linux. So someone picked the main Linux kernel and then worked on it, do one or two tweakings, and then calls its own Debian. It's an operating system, and it is also entirely free and open source. Okay, it is about 20 years old. All right. It uses the package management tool. So if you need to install, if you need to update, if you need to uninstall packages, it uses the Debian package management tools. All right. So as a distribution, that's what I mean by distro. Debian may not get the latest update, but it is very, very stable. Okay, by stability, I mean that it is not the kind of OS that you will need to be releasing patches for every now and then. It is very stable, and then it's good for any platform, either server side or client side. Good. Now you have another one that is popular, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So I'm going to combine 3 together now. Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Fedora, and CentOS. Okay, I think sometimes is it last year now? Yeah. Red Hat acquired CentOS. Okay. Even though what we're going to be learning in class, the distro we'll be using is CentOS 7, but the commands across Linux board are all the same. All right. When you say make directory in CentOS, that is create a folder. It is the same thing in Debian, it is the same thing in Fedora, it is the same thing in Ubuntu, it is the same thing in Gentoo, it is the same in Arch Linux, it is the same thing in OpenSUSE. All right, it's just 1 or 2 differences, slight differences, and then their package management is different. So if you need to install a package on Debian, the remote server it will go to is different from the remote server that Red Hat will go to. All right, so let me bring that home. if you have your Windows OS installed on your system and you need to install, if you actually paid for that OS, if you're not using a cracked version, if you paid for it, okay, and it is licensed, if you need to install any update or any package as regards that OS, it's going directly to Microsoft repository to pick it from. So the same thing with Debian or the different kind of distributions of Linux. Is it Debian? Is it Red Hat? Is it Ubuntu? Is it Fedora? They have their special package management. All right. So for Debian, I said it is Debian package management. For Red Hat, and by extension for Fedora and CentOS, it is the RPM package manager. RPM package manager. So all these things, I'm just giving us this heads up. So by the time we begin to do installation, you begin to see RPM, you begin to see YOM, you know, at that point, now begin to wonder, what are these things? Okay. And you have the other one that is common. That one is being run by a company in South Africa, Canonical. It is called Ubuntu. Okay, has anybody heard of Ubuntu before? Ubuntu is actually a South African word. Okay, and so the developer of Ubuntu actually stemmed from Debian. So Ubuntu is similar to Debian, okay? And that means the package manager that Ubuntu is using is also that of Debian package management system, all right? Ubuntu is also good for, just as Red Hat, Ubuntu and Debian, Ubuntu is also good for any platform, either your desktop, your laptop, or your server, all right? You have the Fedora, you have the CentOS. Okay, so basically I would say Debian, Red Hat, then all those other ones can be attached to it. And then you have the special ones like Linux Mint. Okay, so if you are less bloated than Ubuntu, you can choose Linux Mint. You have the Gentoo. I'm just giving us this for knowledge sake. We'll practically be working on CentOS in this class, okay? And if you are able to use CentOS very well, after sitting 1 hour with Ubuntu or Debian, you are good to go because the commands are the same. Things that are different are very minimal and it's not an issue. So where you are using, I might have to write now. Let me edit this. So where you are using YOM for CentOS, right? You are using apt-get for Debian, Ubuntu, and Debian. All right. So when we get to the part where we're going to be using YOM, you will see it. So at that point, you remember that, okay, so assuming I'm using the distro my company or my organization is using is Ubuntu, instead of using YOM as the installer repository, I'm going to use apt-get. Okay, so these are just the minor differences. So we've gone a step ahead now by talking about the different distros of Linux, right? So can we move into class proper? Yes. Okay. So I'm just going to share my own screen now. So the first thing we want to do is, I know currently on our individual PCs, we are either running the Mac OS for those using the Apple MacBook, or we are running the Windows OS. Am I correct? Is there anybody in this class that is running Linux OS on his or her system? It's very unlikely. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we have to create a virtualization environment. By that, I mean we have to create an environment that will enable us to run virtual machines. Okay. Is there anybody in this class who doesn't know about virtualization? Okay, so I'm not going to assume. It is a process of running a virtual instance of a computer system or network in a layer abstracted from the actual hardware. Okay, so this is going to be, since it's the elementary beginning class, I'm still going back to my whiteboard now. Please, am I audible enough? And am I going at your pace? Do you think I'm too fast?
I'm good.
All right, thank you. So no, I don't need this. What I want to do it now is I want to quickly show us. So for Miss IDK that has attended the Windows class, what I'm about to say now would be like a refresher for you. Okay. I will need this. Okay. Let me call this one an handheld device. This is your laptop. Okay. Can we put a printer here? Or we put a fax? All right. Can we have another computer somewhere here? Good. So can we begin to name it? Let's call this one 1, and let's call it our server. Let's call this 2, 3. These are clients. 4. This is 5. So this is a mobile device, your Android. This is your PC. Okay, let's call it your desktop. This is a printer, or let's call it a fax machine. Okay, this is the server, right? So if this is the server, can we put a switch somewhere here? All right, let's put a switch here. Okay, so from your server, it goes to your switch, isn't it? And what does your switch do? It helps to connect systems within the network. Router helps you to connect systems between, it helps you to connect between two networks, but this is a switch now. So from server, it goes to your switch. From your switch, you now have it to client here, to client here. From mobile device here, we can say, let's have a WLAN here. Your switch goes to this WLAN, it transfers to your mobile device via wireless. Okay, it also comes from here to also your fax or your printer. All right, now this, we can say this is a network infrastructure. All right, okay. We can also call this an enterprise network, isn't it? Or you say a corporate network. Okay, because you have plenty of devices. This is a server, all right, moving the serving these clients, other devices. In fact, you can have somewhere here an ATM machine. This server is also serving them via what? Wi-Fi, okay, connected, or if it is within the premise of, say this is a bank, if it's within the premise, cable can go from here, you won't see it to this place. All right, so that's it. All these things you have here, they are physical. You can touch them, you can see them. Now, when we talk about virtualization, what we are saying is you can create all these things here right in the system in front of you. Not only for learning sake, but even for production live scenario. Okay, whereby you are able to create virtual machines. You are able to set up systems, virtual machines within your own machine. Okay, so what I'm saying is it enables you to split a system into, to create a virtual system that is separate, that is distinct, and that has a secure environment. That's your virtual machine. So the system in front of you right now is either running on Windows or Mac OS. It cannot run on the two, except if you have partitioned your hardware. But I won't go into all that now. Now, if it is running on Windows fully, it cannot also run on Mac OS. It can't. If it is running on Mac OS, it can never run on Windows. However, there is a virtualization software that will help you to create virtual machines such that the environment of your host, when I say your host, I'm referring to your computer in front of you, that environment is isolated from what you create in your virtual machines, such that you can have a virtual machine that will run on Linux, even though your host is running on Mac OS or Windows OS. You can have a virtual machine that will run on Mac OS or your Windows OS, even when your host is not running on the same. All right. And the name of that virtualization software is called Type 2 Hypervisor. Okay. It's called Type 2 Hypervisor. Has anybody heard of Type 2 Hypervisor before? I know Miss Ibk would have heard of this since you were in admin class. So let me just sample opinion. How many are we? Has anyone heard of Type 2 Hypervisor?
Yes, we have.
Yes.
Everybody, right?
I believe so.
Oh, excellent. It makes my work easier. So that means if we know Type 2 Hypervisor, we also know what Type 1 Hypervisor is.
Yes, we do.
So another name for Type 1 Hypervisor is called what?
Bare metal.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So you call it your bare metal or you call it your native hypervisor. So excellent. So I'm enjoying this class. It means we can move forward with this. So this machine you see here, server 1, server 2, server 1, client 2, 3, we can go and use our virtualization technology, which is Type 2 Hypervisor, to create them. And by the time we get to cloud services, we can do all these things in cloud, such that all these infrastructures are already been provisioned for in cloud. You don't need to have, you don't need to expend money on physical infrastructure if you need to set up an enterprise network. You can just go into cloud and configure things. So you already pick an already configured one and suit it to what your organization needs. All right. And you're able to set up a server, either a web page server or a database server, everything in cloud, instead of buying a server and creating a special room or using or looking for where it's secured, where there cannot be hurricane this, hurricane that, and affect it, or you are bothered about money for you to begin to purchase all these physical hardwares, and people know. You just go into any of the cloud management services, either AWS or Azure or Google Cloud Platform. You can set up the whole of this enterprise network. Either you want to use it for database, or you want to use it for storage, or you just want to use it for computing, say a website. Okay, and that is why IT now is the hot cake, selling than gold or oil. All right, because it has made life easier. Everybody wants something that makes their life easier. I haven't said that. Now let us go and begin. New share, screen share. So an example of type 2 hypervisor is the Oracle VirtualBox virtual machine. Okay, so since we already know what type 2 means, it means that we run it on our host OS, and it enables us to create an environment for us to run virtual machines. So what do we do first? We go to download. So you go to your browser, navigate to Google, and there you download Oracle VirtualBox. So if you have passed through the Windows administration class, you already know how to do this. So this is the link I'm picking, the one that has www.virtualbox.org. Right. So if I now ask us an example of type 2 hypervisor, we already know it. The Oracle VirtualBox. You have also have other ones. Windows, Microsoft have their own, which is a VMware, right? So you come to download VirtualBox 6.1. Click on that. Based on the OS that your host, by your host, I've said this often, your host is the computer in front of you, your computer. Based on the OS it is running. So you click here. If your host is running Mac OS, please select OS by host. If it is running on Windows, please select Windows. Mine is running on Windows, so I'm going to click Windows here. Is there anybody in class who doesn't have VirtualBox installed on their PC? We've seen this for the first time. Everybody, right? So everybody have VirtualBox on their PC. I think I'm really not talking to elementary people as you people claim though. Okay. Oluwayemi, is it okay now or okay? Okay. You're trying to say something. Okay, Mr. Okay. Is this your first time of installing a VirtualBox?
No, sir.
Okay, so everybody here knows how to install VirtualBox, so I can save our time and we'll move ahead.
I believe so.
Okay, so if that's the case, I'll terminate this. There's no point wasting time. Okay, so the next thing is we have our VirtualBox installed. So don't mind all these ones you're seeing here. Remember I said we've been doing this training for a while now, so these are the ones I've been using to train others. Okay, so if we have a VirtualBox installed, I also assume that we already know how to create a virtual machine. Okay, however, for refresher's sake, we'll come and create a virtual machine. All right. What did I do? Machine new. Okay. Come to name. What name do we give to our virtual machine? Let's name it Linux. No. Can we find a unique name for it? You said you want to give us idea? Okay. September Linux. All right. The folder you want to save it on, let's leave that one there. So because Linux as a name has come up here, the type here goes to Linux automatically. All right. So if let me try and put something else. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this. Let me say new again. So you see what is there by default is Windows by default. But because I typed Linux here, it assumed I'm doing something around Linux. So this time I will just type September L. Okay. And then I drop down the type of the OS to Linux. The version I want to use, Linux version I'm using, let's pick 64-bit. Linux 2.6, Linux 3.x, Linux 4.6, 64-bit. And then our next. So I'm gonna assign the memory of my RAM. Okay, so there are 3 resources that your virtual machine draws from your host. Okay, can anybody tell me the 3 or one of it that you know? Because
RAM.
Thank you.
Storage.
Thank you. What's the third one? The RAM, the storage. What's the third one? Your CPU, your processor.
Processor.
Yeah, thank you. So these are the 3 resources, and these 3 must be strong enough for your virtual machines to work properly. So to be on the safe side, I would say you give the RAM of your virtual machine 2 gig. Okay. But if you are giving your virtual machine RAM of 2 gig, it is expected that, so this is from my experience, I've not seen this in any literature, that the RAM of your host is 8 gig and above. 8 gig and above. But if your host RAM is just 4, please assign just 1 gig to the virtual machines. In case you need to run 2-3 virtual machines together, so that it's not going to drag your VirtualBox. It won't be dragging. Otherwise, you will not like the experience. If your RAM size is small and you are setting high RAM to your virtual machine, it will drag your PC. Okay, so my RAM size is 8 gig. I can afford to give this one. Okay, so please, Mr. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want to know, because when we were trying to select the operating system we were going to use.
Yep.
If I am not mistaken, you said we were going to be working on CentOS, right?
Yes.
So I just saw we picked the Linux, whatever 2.6.
Yes.
And I saw we had other options there, Debian and other Linux operating system. So yes. I don't know, maybe that is in default is CentOS. I don't know, maybe you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I do. So because we have the options of picking, okay, let me look for a good scenario now. All right, so I say that you'll be working with fruits, right? Maybe you're gonna be making smoothies, all right? And you have the processes are the same, just 1 or 2 differences. Because if you're going to make orange smoothie or banana smoothie, the process of peeling these 2 fruits are different, isn't it? But however, I would rather teach you how to make general fruit smoothie than to teach you how to make banana smoothie or orange smoothie. Because with the general fruit smoothie, you have a broader what? Knowledge. Okay, so if I picked CentOS here, or Fedora, you know, I mentioned all these ones, or Gentoo, okay, I've limited you. Do you understand? You've been limited. But if I pick Linux, it means that there are other commands that works generally for Linux, all right? Commands that are not native to CentOS, but they are general Linux commands. I can teach you here as well. So this is the reason why I'm using Linux version. Am I clear, Mr. Okay?
You're clear. Thank you.
All right, so let's move ahead. So I said my size is 8 gig. Okay, but because I have other virtual machines here, I'm using for other reasons, I'll still assign 1 gig. Although Linux is actually a light OS, it doesn't really consume as much as Windows does. So I move next. What I'm creating is a virtual disk, 8 gig, create VDI. I'm sure you know this already. Dynamically allocated, it means that it can scale up and it can also scale in here. I'm gonna need just 8 gig of my old hard drive, create. All right, so September Linux, we have created a virtual machine, right? So what do we do next from here? We need to start it. But before we start, we need to download the particular OS that we will run on the machine. Okay, so to put it in perspective, what we have done right now is we have just bought a new laptop. We've just bought a new computer. All right, so when you buy a laptop, okay, what do you do next? You install OS on it, isn't it? Although for some of us, the PCs that we bought, it comes with a pre-installed OS. All right, but it also means that it can come empty like that. Okay, it's not totally empty. You have your type 1 hypervisor on it, which has already prepared the environment for you to install your OS. But let's just take it as though you don't know what the type 1 hypervisor is. It is empty. Now that you've bought a laptop, you're home, the next thing you need to do is to install the OS you want to run on the PC. Now, the OS we want to run is what? Is Linux. What do we do? We'll go and buy our Linux OS. Is that it? Is that not what you guys did in Windows?
Yes.
All right. So what we need to do now is to go and download. So we go to Google as usual. We'll say we're going to be using OS Cent 7, CentOS 7. Download CentOS 7. Right. This is it. You come to CentOS 7. All right, so this is so like I said, CentOS has been bought over by Red Hat. So their support now is coming from Red Hat. Okay, so the one we are going to be using is 7. Do you know how I got here? From your Google, I like to go as basic as possible, CentOS 7. And then I click on centos.org.org, and I'm here. I want to, the one we're working with is CentOS Linux, but 7. All right. So because Red Hat Enterprise Linux has bought CentOS 7, by 2024, they will discontinue support for it. All right. So you may now want to ask, why are we studying a package that will be discontinued in 2024? The discontinuity does not mean that what you learned is invalid. What we are teaching us is Linux, not CentOS. So all the commands you're using here are all Linux commands. And if we are taking our lesson further into AWS, those commands are still what we're going to use in the Linux aspect of AWS. All right. Even when we get to DevOps, when we are doing your SSH, when you are spinning up your all forms of your servers, it is still the same, either your Jenkins server or your Tomcat server. It is the same command you are using here, you will use them. All right. So the sense of using Linux, one of the reasons is because it is easily accessible. Okay. And we can quickly use it to teach or to train. All right. So I'm just trying to alleviate that concern of it's going to be discontinued. That means what we learn is invalid. Not at all. We're not teaching you CentOS. What we are teaching us is Linux. Right? Can we move ahead? So I pick this CentOS 7. Remember, I said that it is the RPM package that CentOS uses, while Debian uses Debian Package Manager. All right, so I'll click on x86_64, and it will take me to different mirrors of where I can download. So you can pick any one of these ones you have here. All right, the important thing is the ISO, the image you are picking as 86_64, because that was what we selected here. Remember when we wanted to do this? Actually select, did you see it here? Linux 2.6, 3.x, 4.x, 64-bit. So when you're downloading, you must be able to also download the one that supports 64-bit and not 32-bit, please. So I'll just look around and say, okay, let me pick one. All right, so look at it here. CentOS 7 64 DVD 4.7 gig. Okay, well, this is more like it. So I'll select this. Once I select this now, it has started downloading. Can we all see the download box here? Are we in class?
Excuse me.
Yes.
All right.
I'm wondering, because it's trying to download it, I wasn't seeing this. I don't know how I got this 4 gig. What I saw was almost 9.2 gig. So I ended up using that. So I don't know if it's
But did you get how I got here? Do you need to take that again? Did you understand how I got to this place? You want me to take that again?
Okay.
Okay, so what I want to do is, first I'm going to terminate this download. Since I already have my own, I'm going to, let me see, show in folder. No, what I want to do is cancel. Yes, cancel the download. So this is my browser, Google. So I want to download CentOS. The OS I want to install on the computer I just bought. But now I bought a virtual machine. Okay, remember, you guys already know this, that your Oracle VirtualBox enables you to have different virtual machines on your host. So I've bought a computer. Now I need to install OS on it. So I come to Google and I say, okay, Google, I'm going to download CentOS 7. Then I click on centos.org, takes me to their site. Okay. So instead of using 8, I want to use 7. CentOS 7. So I leave the tab.
What's the difference between the 7 and 8?
So it's just like your Windows 7 and Windows 8. Okay, this is an improved version. This is a later version. All right.
All right.
So this is CentOS 7. Okay. And the image I'm downloading is the image for 8664. You have image for others, but the one we're going to use for you is 8664. And that's because here, that is what I selected, 64-bit. All right. Then when you click on that, it takes you to another page, still on that site. All right. And I just look around. Oh, these are repositories. Remember I said Debian, when it needs to do installation of package, when it needs to update package, when Debian needs to uninstall a package, there is a particular repository it goes to. Okay, the same thing for CentOS. Okay, so these are the repositories available for CentOS where you can download. Okay, and when you begin to use the machine, okay, when you need to install services and other things, it comes to this repository as well. So look at all these things properly. When it is showing us again during running of our Linux, I'll remind us that, remember, you've seen these mirrors before. Because by the time we are trying to update our repository, all right, it's going to say, okay, checking this mirror, checking that mirror. It's just saying that these are held, all these ones here, they are held in different remote servers across the entire world. Okay, like all these ones that has code.za, I know that these ones are held in South Africa. All this code.za, that's South Africa, right? So I just clicked on one. You don't have to have anyone in mind, but if you still want to follow me, this is the one I picked: centosmirror.liquidtelecom.com. Right, then after I clicked on that, look at the one that have 8664DB 2009 ISO. That's the one I clicked on. Right, and it has started downloading 4.4 gig. Okay, but I want to cancel it because I already have my own. So to that person, are you clear now, sir? Hello, sir. Are you clear now?
Yes. But like, if I have a site, because like I downloaded the version 8.
Okay.
Yes, and the size is 9.2, almost 9.5 gigs. So I don't know if that
so please,
size is too much.
Please download version 7 so you can have a smooth understanding. All right. It doesn't mean you cannot use version 8, but this is an elementary class. Okay, it's better you build from the basics up. All right, it's better you build from the basics up. So let's learn with version 7. Okay. When you begin to work with Linux eventually, you will see other distros. You will work with Ubuntu. You will work with Debian. you work with Fedora, you work with Gentoo. At a point, you have to settle down for one. Okay, I think I like this. Or it depends on the one that your organization is using. All right, it depends on the one that your organization is using. Okay, so that I know of, I know that companies like I think, yeah, companies like Disney, yeah, GoDaddy, Toyota, Verizon, they are using CentOS Linux, right? Even Juniper, Riverbed, yeah, these are the Linux distros that they are using, right? So let us move ahead, please. I've downloaded it. I assume I've downloaded it. What's next for me to do? We now come and run our OS on our virtual machine. How do you do that? The same way you did when you were learning for Windows. Okay. Need to add this. This is the virtual machine we just bought. We start it. Are there questions, please? Please ask me questions. I'm here for you. Okay, so this is it. Just the way you installed your Windows, you click on the folder and you look around. If you don't have it here, I assume you don't have it here already because I don't have my own. So you click on add. If you click on add here, it will ask you to browse for where you have it saved. So when you downloaded your own, likely you downloaded it in your download folder or your desktop or wherever you normally put your downloads. Okay, so I've downloaded mine and I moved mine to my Airten software. So this is it, CentOS. All right. So I click on open and then I come here, look for it, and I'll say choose, and then I'll start. All right. So in your physical machine, what you are doing is you're either using a CD for the installation, or you have the installation file in your flash drive.
USB.
All right. You want to say something?
No. Oh, sorry. I got my.
Okay. Or you have it saved in your flash drive, or you even already have an OS running on your PC already, and you just want to upgrade it, maybe from Windows 7 to 8, or Windows 8 to 10, or from 10 to 365, whichever one. So in that case, if you already have an OS running already, what do? You just connect to the internet, and then you connect it to the RP, the repository or the site of your OS, and then you upgrade it. Okay. So one thing about that route is you are installing the original version, not the cracked version, and you're paying for it directly. And you can also get support as well. Right. So far so good. Do we have understanding of what we've been learning? We've not really started. We're just doing the basic things. By the time we install her, we now begin to explore the environment. All right. And then maybe after 3 weeks, I'll now come back and ask us, so which one do you prefer to use to manage your servers, Windows or Linux? So far for all the classes I've been taking, they have been preferring Linux. Okay. So for me, I don't have any preference. It depends on what I want to do. Okay. Linux is more for large or complex systems. Okay, where you don't have to be doing one by one, where you have to do for a mega corporation. So you just use your script or you run your batch and you're good to go. Okay, so our installation is on. Is anybody downloading right there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. How many, what's the gig of your of your installation file?
It's 4.4 gig.
Okay. Where's it trying to download?
I will do mine after the class.
All right.
Just on a lesson.
Okay, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing too.
Yeah, I like that. So if you can just concentrate in class, it's because at this point you can still try to multitask, but by the time you begin to enter instructions here and there, you really prefer that you listen in class and then you do your labs. You do your labs thereafter. Yeah.
So are we going to have notes with the video?
Well, so the notes you're gonna have, they are not they're just bullet points of what we are doing, right? Like, so how to download, then when you download, install it. Okay, so if you think it's gonna show us how I click that yellow folder and how I navigated to where I saved it, no, this is a live class. What you do with live classes, when you watch, you try and make your own note in your own language that you understand. But will you have something that will guide you of this is stepwise process of what we do to arrive at this point? Yes. Okay, but will you have the breakdown? No, sir. Because this is, you can have such a breakdown in Windows. As a matter of fact, when I taught Windows, I gave them notes. So what I want to say now is not to call you that, it's just to portray how I made it, I simplified it. I gave them what I call Windows Server for Dummies. It is very, very explanatory, right? But you cannot attempt that in Linux. And you see the reason when we begin to use Linux, because you can use the command 3 times, right? Because you just want to get something. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll give an outline. This is what we want to achieve. I want to create an Apache server, or I want to do SSH. These are the steps to do SSH. But we now be writing the commands I used. No, it is for you to be in class, listen just as those two gentlemen said, pay attention, and maybe when you watch the video again, you can make your own notes. All right, so let us begin. Our language, English, yep. Region, United States, okay. Continue. So let's begin to pick this one by one. Can we set date and time? Localization. Can we set date and time? Okay, so why is it taking time? Okay. So can we set the date and time? a region, yep, a city, oh, HPPY. Okay, so these are just cosmetics, but it's important, especially for time. Time is very, very important. Okay. So just need you to see wherever you are, you can set your own at this point. All right. And to this. Okay. When you're done setting, do you want to take the network time on? If you like, you can turn on the network time. You see done. Can we pick the keyboard version that we want? English US. Yep. Done. Language support, you can say, well, our language support is still English. We already set that one. We say done, right? The set software selection. Set software selection. Here you pick minimal install and you check server with GUI. So where is server with GUI? So because we are all beginners, most Linux is a command line interface, CLI. Are we in class?
Yes.
All right. So most Linux OS is a command line interface. Where you enter is you will not be seeing folders and all those as you see in Windows. Okay, but because we are learning, we're going to use a server with graphic user interface. All right. So what that means is you will have both CLI and graphic user interface. Okay, so that when we create a folder, a directory from the CLI, when you go to the graphics user interface, if you go to your home page, okay, at the graphics user interface, you can see it there. It's just for you to appreciate the commands you are putting that you are using. All right. So all these ones, like the FTP, like the email server, like the DNS server, inside we'll begin to install them one by one when we get there. So let's just follow. Our software selection, it is not minimal install. We are using server with graphic user interface. Okay. So we say done. Then what else do we pick? System installation destiny. Okay, so see what is happening here is trying to check software dependencies. So you don't have any problem with this. Once it's done with this, it's going to put it off. What you need to check here is the graphics server with GUI, which you've done that. Okay, can we come around and select installation destination? Okay, so it's going to install on our 8 gig that we set it to. Remember when we were creating this virtual machine, we said that the hard drive should be what? 8 gig, isn't it? And that is what it has picked here. Okay, so if at some point in time our server needs to be needs more volume of storage, so let us say item.com, we are working on our own, and then a frame approach to that. Okay, so we want you to handle a reality TV show, and we want everybody in America to register via your platform. And we look at it. So the team of IT, both the DevOps, the cloud architect, the server administrator, they'll come together and say, right, so we need to make a solution for this, our client. Right, then they will not say, okay, so the server person, the volume or the storage space we have currently is just 8 gig. It will not be enough for this kind of project. So you need to add more drives. All right. When we get there, you're gonna see how we can add more drives to what we already have here. All right. So just a projection. When we get there, you will see it. It's actually an interesting ride. So let's move. Okay. So now that all caution signs are done, we set our time, we set our keyboard, we set our link language, we set our software selection, installation source is from the local media, we set our destination. Okay, next thing is we begin to install. All right, so it is now asking us to set our root, password, and user creation. All right, root, password, and user creation. As root is to Linux, so is dash to Windows. What represents root in Windows?
Admin.
Thank you, sir. Administrator. So can we come and set our root password? What do we give it? Let's say I10 2021. So the I10 I entered is capital I, that is I in uppercase, then the rest of 10 in lowercase. Then I used numeric 2021, and I also used the special character exclamation mark. That is how to set strong passwords. There should be an uppercase minimum of 8 alphanumeric, and then a special character. All right, I'm sure we have learned all these policies in Windows. I type 2021, confirm it. I10 2021. Okay, so the passwords are taken, say done. Next is we'll do what? We create a user. Or do we create user now? We can create user later. So let's for now move ahead. Are there questions? We're moving on. Do you have questions?
For me, none.
Okay. Miss IBK, you have any question?
Not for now.
So you've understood everything we've been talking about so far?
I'll still go back to watch the videos, but for now, they're straightforward.
Okay. Mr. Tayo, you have questions?
Yes. No question. I'm listening.
Okay. Mr. Kelvin.
Yeah, it's okay. That's fine. No question.
All right. All right, sir. All right, sir. Mr. Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, sir. So we're waiting for our installation to complete. Right. So let me ask us. You will manage a system of a network of about just 10 clients, and you are the server administrator of the organization, right? And they now ask you, which one will you deploy as server to undo that network, Windows or Linux?
I'll choose Linux.
So why do you want to use Linux, sir? What's your reason?
From your explanation, you said the resources it uses, like the hard disks and stuff, is really very low.
The what?
So you said the resources it uses is low compared to Windows.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's going to save resources. And you said that Linux is used on a large, it's usually used for larger numbers of clients.
So
I don't know.
So what you said now, is that Mr. Kelvin? Or Mr.
Oh, this is Oluwaye.
Okay, so Mr. Oluwaye, why do you want to use Linux on a network of just 10 systems when I said it's for large enterprise?
I'm sorry, I'm just confused.
No, don't be confused. You have unconfused yourself when you get to that point.
But let me ask a question.
Okay, sir.
Can a Windows not handle a large enterprise?
Yes, it can. Because right now, Windows 2 now know that to handle large enterprise, you need to have a scripting. They now also have server core. They have the shell. Is it shell they call it now?
PowerScript.
You said?
PowerScript.
Yes, they have the PowerScript, right? Because instead of going to configure user account.
PowerShell?
Yeah, PowerShell. Yeah. All right. So instead of going to configure user account, you have 100 persons to configure user account for. I can just run a script, isn't it? That's why Linux is sweet.
Okay, so, well, now let me say something.
All right.
If you're talking about the PowerShell, scripting and all, but sometimes, as an engineer, you'll be fed up of, you don't get that, the script. You don't get them available. You don't know all the scripting sometimes, and that is why Windows, their interface, maybe you can make use of scripting, and you can also go through directions. It's two-way to it. Going through direction and making use of scripting. Okay, so
I'm so sorry for cutting you short.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry for cutting you short. I just want to know, what are we trying to talk about here, please?
Okay, so what we are doing in the background is we are trying to install our OS, Linux OS, on our virtual machine. So while we are doing that, we are engaging ourselves. Linux server or Windows server on a network of 10 or less devices. All right.
Thank you.
So I'm now sharing how we prefer to run Windows because the systems connecting are few. Okay, and I'm giving the advantage of Linux over Windows, although Windows is also coming up now with their scripting interface, their command line interface that can help you, instead of doing something one by one, all right, you can just use, you write a script for it and then you run it, okay, and it takes effect. Instead of opening from one window, to another. Imagine what you passed through when you wanted to create policies. When you are creating policies, when you are dealing with organizational units. These things, you can just use a command for it. Okay, and then I think Mr. Tayo is now trying to explain, right? Was that Mr. Tayo?
Yeah, I'm not explaining. I'm just saying like two of them has advantages. That's what I'm just trying to say.
Yeah, so that's why I said I actually don't have preference. Okay, my own is as an administrator, or the ultimate point I feel we want to get to a DevOps engineer or even the cloud solution architect. So let us dwell on solution architect now. Is that you optimize the resources of the organization. All right. So Linux will get the job done. Windows will get the job done. Now, you as an architect, it is on you to optimize the resources the organization have. All right. So you now need to begin to consider other factors. And the top on your factor list should be economics. Whatsoever is going to save the organization money and deliver value, that should be your first consideration. All right, because by the time we get to cloud, if we are going to cloud, I don't know the aim of the individual persons in this class, okay? But if we are going to cloud and we will be learning AWS, all right, when you're about to write your AWS associate architect 002, right? Many of the questions they are asking is not that can you spin up a server EC2, or can you set up a storage S3, or can you network, can you connect a database that is on MongoDB or SQL to your Amazon RDS? No, they are asking you scenario-based questions, just as how we are engaging ourselves now. So you have an organization that is just coming up. Okay, their device is less than 10. So take a maximum of 10, okay? And they'll be generating minimal, database. And they're now asking you, which of the Amazon Web Service will you recommend for them? Okay, so they assume that you know how to spin up, or how to they know that you already know how to do these services on Amazon, but they want to test your knowledge. Are you going to be wasting your organization's money? Because in storage, in cloud, you have S3, you have common EBS, Elastic Block Store, that is attached to your EC2 server when you set it up. Okay, and they give you about, I think, 8 or 64 gig, right? In case that one is not enough, that's when you can now say you need extra ones like S3, or you even need the Snowball, or you even need an EFX. Because all these ones I'm saying now, don't worry, if we are going there, when we get there, we'll explain it better. But these are storage options available on the cloud, especially for Amazon Cloud Service. Okay, so what led me there is you have two options. These two options will deliver what you have in mind. But when you consider some factors, one is better. One has advantage over the other. All right, so your role is not just to be able to click and click and click. Okay, beyond clicking and clicking, you must understand the critical why behind every of the solution you are deploying for your organization. And this is what distinguishes you. That's why they call you a cloud architect. All right, but if it's just a managed server, in fact, before you even get to your company, say your company already have a server that they're already using for how many years they have been operating, except if they're working with a startup. So yeah, if you're part of a startup team, then they might not put you to rigorous thinking. Okay. But if you're already working over, but if you're hoping to join a company that's already been working, okay, they already have a server, already either on premise or in cloud. And in cloud, let's say they are using AWS. AWS has both server for Windows, it has for Windows, it has for Oracle, not even just two, it has server that can be managed by Windows, server that can be managed by Oracle, server that can be managed by Linux. All right, so Amazon is both infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Their own is just to provide these services to you. You can choose to come and manage it yourself based on what you want. Right, so all those things I showed us in that diagram, that as it is in physical, you can touch them, right? They are also available in cloud. Okay, but the difference there is 1, 2, 3 options will do what you have in mind, but you have to pick one. Now you now have to consider factors like, do you want to consider durability? Do you want to consider stability of the software? Okay, that I know Linux is more stable than Windows. Does anybody agree with me? Or does anybody disagree rather? Okay, so while we are waiting, you can open your Google and check advantages of Linux over Windows. Do you want to consider stability? Do you want to consider security? Okay, is your server will not be easily affected or infected by malwares, viruses, intruders, hackers? Okay, do you want to consider, like I said initially, top on your consideration list should be your what? Economic reasons. Okay, so these are the things you will consider. So don't just jump to answer when they ask you Linux server or Windows server. You should ask other questions that will guide your decision. Okay, so why are you asking me Linux or Windows? What kind of network are we talking about? How many systems? How often? Who is going to be, what's our target audience? All right, so Africa, they are more prone to Windows. Okay, so it will be to make sense for you to say, okay, so if the solution we are developing are going to be accessed more by Africans, so if it's a predominant African access now, why don't we spin up a server that will be run by Windows so that we can have smooth compatibility with any of their devices? Are we in class? Am I making sense?
Yeah, yes, you're making sense.
All right, so it is not to say this is the best or something. It really depends on what you want to achieve as an architect. All right, as an architect. And I should tell us, you'll not be working alone. You'll probably be in, except if you're working for startup, yeah, they might put everything in your head. That's why they need it to be vast. Okay, but if you're working in even a medium-sized corporation, you're not alone. You have in your team other IT guys. You likely have the CCNA guy, the networking. You likely have the hardware guys. These ones are even at the Wakida, the ones that ensures the computers are connected and the rest. Okay, Then you talk about your level, you have the software developer, you have the web developer, you have the cloud solution architect. Okay. In fact, some organizations try to break it down. They have the database manager separately. Okay. And that's like another line entirely where where there is where is undersaturated. Okay, because many persons try to run away from database. It's very, very lucrative, but all the same, is also volatile. Right? When you're dealing with data, you have to be careful. You must know what you're doing. And that's why every other thing might be on the server. Database has its own server separately. All right. Every other thing might be on the web server. Your cache, your NTP, your NFS, your it might be on the web server. But when it comes to database, especially for serious companies, they put their database separately. Okay, so this diagram here. Okay, these are servers, right? So the hardware you see. Has anybody been to a data center before? Has anybody been to a data center? Okay. So you can have cloud without a data center. Yes or no? This is a question to us. You can have cloud services without a data center. Yes or no?
I would say no.
No.
Say no.
Yeah. Mr. Deji, did you say no? Mr. Okay. You say no?
Yeah, I said no because there's supposed to be an infrastructure that's going to provide the cloud services at locations. So I think there's always an hardware backup, hardware job being done behind that provides the cloud services.
Wow.
So that's my reason for saying no.
Wow. Wow.
And then for individuals subscribing to the services, I don't think they need to have data centers, except they want to have a hybrid, which is on-premise. So they could also have their own data center.
Wow. Who else thinks it is no? I have two no's now, one from Mr. Deji and Mr. Okay. Who else thinks is no? Do we even know what data center is?
Yeah, I think data center is like an infrastructure where you have the server and other resources that's responsible for providing the cloud services, which is being used by clients and and other users. That's what I think the data center is.
Okay. So I was just trying to do all those gestures to check our confidence. You're absolutely right. All right. So if there is no data center, there is no cloud. Okay. So everything you push into the cloud or you draw from the cloud, they are held down in a storage device somewhere. And that somewhere is called a data center. Right. So when you save your picture on Instagram and the picture on your own device is deleted, you still have the one you posted on Instagram. And anytime you log in, you can go there and download it. All right. That one you save on Instagram. Instagram is saving it in a physical storage device somewhere that is housing it. All right. So everything you see in cloud, internet, they are being held somewhere. So Google gives every Gmail account, I think 6 gig or 1 gig. How many did they give us? Every Gmail account, they give you 6 or 1 gig. I can't remember clearly now. Yeah. So whatever you save on your Gmail, either you send pictures or you attach a document and send to someone, it is automatically saved in your Google account, your certificate. They are all saved in Google account, and you can go and pull them. From somewhere. So you can go and pull them from your Google Drive, right? So they are being held somewhere in Google's data center, right? Just like Amazon as well. Amazon is the chief of cloud computing. Even the second person next to them is not close at all, which is Azure, right? And so everything they are doing, it is being held in the cloud, in the data center somewhere, right? Okay, so we are still waiting for our